You're listening to Inside the Locker Room with Wimp and Barry Sanderson on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa.
Noon in the mid to upper 60s at 67. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 62 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Inside the Locker Room with former Crimson Tide basketball coach Wimp Sanderson and his son, former SEC and ACC assistant basketball coach Barry Sanderson. It's time to take you inside the locker room on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
And good morning. Welcome into a Monday edition of Inside the Locker Room. 205-342-9904 is the number if you want to call in and talk about the weekend and what happened yesterday with the 12 teams named Alabama being left out. I have a little bit to say about that after Dad's gives you the scores and his opinion on everything. So I probably have a different opinion than some of you guys from listening to people this morning. Download the Tide 100.9 app. You can put that on your smartphone. You can take us with you anywhere you go. You also can send us an app message or right there on the app. So download that and send us a message throughout the show. We'd be happy to read that on the air. We want to thank Yellowwood, pressure-treated pine from Great Southern. You want to build the fence, the deck, the pergola, you want to use Yellowwood. Go to yellowwood.com to find a dealer closest to you. And always remember, guys, if it doesn't have that yellow tag on it, then you don't want it. If you want to email us, you can do that at wimpandbarry@yahoo.com. Good morning, Chase. How are you, sir? Good. Good morning, Dad. How are you?
I'm okay. Let me explain this to you as best I can. We had two teams out of the 16 did not go anywhere. That's Kentucky and Auburn. They're out. The rest of them went somewhere. Now here's the reasoning. One of the reasonings behind this. When SMU played well, and you start comparing Alabama versus Miami, and Alabama wins that comparison because you want to use the two losses that the committee did in the games that they played. And then you start in with your comparison against SMU. SMU played well. It's going to be hard to keep them out. One of the biggest things that happened in this, and none of you will catch on, is the backlash that people had in the voting booth. Whether you're right, whether they're right or wrong, you can get on here and give the rights and wrongs for your team. But there is a backlash. When you see people complaining and gapping and yakking and commissioners saying stuff about certain things, there is a huge backlash. But it changes a little bit their mindset. It changes their mind thought, and it gives them an opportunity to go a little bit. And because SMU played well, they played very well. Now, here's what everybody's going to say. Well, look at their schedule. Your schedule versus we got this. Study our schedule and change our schedule now. Listen, folks, if you change the schedule, and you may change the schedule in order to be better, the next committee may not feel that way.
Good point.
The next committee may be different.
Yeah.
And so you can't start saying I'm going to correct things because what the committee did. I don't care whether you're the athletic director at Alabama or where you are. The next committee may may do things differently. So to me, the backlash and when you got that right down to it, SMU played well. How are you going to keep them out? Yes, they had a poorer schedule than Alabama, but a big number in the Oklahoma game certainly hurt Alabama. So that's exactly what happened. So we'll take your phone calls. There's a lot of things that I could say besides that. I don't want to take up the whole show. The next thing that we're going to have, and I'm not going to go through it, is the transfer portal. When you throw the football to one person all the time, and he is the All-American, all this, all that, you have to pay him to stay. He's going to stay, I'm sure. But the other people are 88 and out the gate. Some of your offensive linemen are 88 and out the gate. So transfer portal will not only be some coming in, punter coming in from Alabama, and there's some going out. So I did win the blue plate, so it did stay decently there by picking Oregon in a pretty tough game to pick them because They came in, had a hard time in that particular game. So we all opened up the line, Barry and I do, and Chase, whoever's there, to talk.
Yeah, I agree. When I start hearing people saying, we just don't need to schedule tough anymore. Okay. This was the first year. And so I think they're going to tweak this thing. And so, it used to be an NCAA tournament. It was win 20 games. Win 20 games, you get an NCAA tournament. Right. Then they said, all right, now we're going to factor in strength of schedule. So then you're sitting there like Texas A&M was, who didn't play anybody, and they won 20-something games and then didn't get in. Nick Saban had the best point of all yesterday that nobody caught. The committee should have never ranked SMU 8 to begin with. That's where they made the problem. They should have put them around 11 or 12 and made that ACC championship game a play-in game, where if you win it, you're in. But when you put them 8, it's too far to fall there. So that's number one. Number two, you don't want to change your schedule. First of all, one of the reasons why you went to the home and home format with Alabama playing Florida State. I think they got Ohio State, those kind of people. You got to make money, guys. You got to sell tickets. Now, you're paying out a bunch of money. So people that are saying, well, let's go play West Kentucky and all these people won't buy the tickets. And you got to make the money to do that, and the goalposts will change. So I personally don't like Greg Byrne and those guys out whining about the strength of schedule. Alabama just needs to take responsibility. The reason they're not in the playoff, look in the mirror. You won your tough games. You got to beat Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. If you'd have lost to Georgia and beat Vanderbilt, you'd have been in probably. So you can't lose those games like that. So trying to blame the committee and about the strength of schedule, look in the mirror and tell these guys, we got to be ready to play every week. That's why you cannot lose games like that. Maybe one, but to lose two, complaining about that and what the committee did to me is soft, and it sends the wrong message to the players. Hey, you got to be ready to play every time you play. Nick Saban's teams always were, and this team lost 2 games they shouldn't have lost, and they lost that Tennessee game. They didn't deserve to be in the playoff. When that kid kicked that field goal at the end and SMU came back, that's why you can't leave it in the committee's hands. Any comment on that?
No, I agree. I think there's no doubt about it. They could have lost to Georgia and beaten Vanderbilt, and because everybody loses to Georgia. That's a good point there. But when you get people, don't tell me that these people in this committee don't check and see how people feel. Now, you're not going to make everybody happy, but because of the opportunity, and they certainly deserved it last year when Alabama beat out Florida State to go, people complained about that. Well, it shouldn't have been a complaint, but there was. And then you turned around with saying Alabama, even your announcers that announce the games a little bit, and I don't ever complain about announcers. I think most of them do a fairly decent job. Some of them don't. I do think in this particular game, just off the set, is that Herbstreit and them, who are good, lean towards Georgia in the playoff game over Texas. I do think that, but it's okay. But anyway, I just think it's a situation where if you decide that because it happened this year, we will correct it for next year, that does not hold water.
Yeah, and you look at the overall rankings. First of all, they have a bad format to let these teams. You should rank them 1 through 12, and then see the playoffs. So you have Georgia 2 and Texas 3. So the SEC and Tennessee is 7. Alabama's 11. If Alabama would have beat Vanderbilt or Oklahoma, the SEC would have got 4 teams in the playoff. I firmly believe they would have been in over SMU. So your strength of schedule, your conference, all those things would have taken care of itself if you would have taken care of business, and you didn't, and so you left it in the committee's hands. And because even Miami's sitting here at 10-2 at 13, they would have been ahead of those guys there. So I don't like the coming out and complaining. I agree with you. We talked about that. You throw the ball to Ryan Williams every play and don't run the ball. I'm afraid there's going to be some running backs that are going to jump in this portal as well. So that's part of doing business now. So that's not Alabama's fault. That's a college football problem with these guys getting in. 2-minute truck there at 1330 Martin Road East. That's where you go pick up your boxes, your packing supplies, whatever you need to make this a smooth move. Whether it's local, out of town, out of state, or you just need things moved around the house, these guys will take absolutely great care of you. Give them a call today, 205-247-5050. 2 men in a truck, movers who care.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. We got a situation on this Monday morning on Highway 82 westbound at Shelley Hughes Road. Now, this is an overturned vehicle in the median and the left shoulder. Both the left shoulder and median are blocked from that, and it is causing some onlooker delays. And then you've got a little bit of a delay, intersection slow go, so not such a big deal. Lurleen Wallace on the northbound lanes to McFarland Boulevard, starting to thicken up a bit. With your Tuscaloosa traffic now, I'm Tammy Thomas.
Here's what's trending on the Tuscaloosa thread.
Good Monday morning. Drought conditions across West Alabama should be rolled back a bit with all the rainfall we have received so far. And the rain still forecast, some 3 inches of rainfall possible through tomorrow night. The rain should help extinguish a 10-acre wildfire just off US 82 in western
Alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
Road tripping, business travel, or bringing your car in for repairs. All great reasons to rent a Toyota at Tuscaloosa Toyota. You can rent the latest Toyota models for a day, a week, or a weekend. Every Toyota rental-car comes with 24 hours roadside assistance.
Website. See if it makes sense for your business.
Go to townsquarelocal.com for a free demo of the Townsquare Business Management Platform. Visit townsquarelocal.com. That's townsquarelocal.com.
You're listening to the home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports. Tide 100.9.
Welcome back to Inside the Locker Room. Think yellow or pressure-treated pine. They make this 7 o'clock hour possible. If it doesn't have the yellow tag on it, you don't want it. All right, get to the Yellowwood Hotline. We got several calls holding here. We'll get through them. Get Tony in. Good morning, Tony.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. Y'all okay?
Yes, sir. Are you?
Good. Doing well. Barry, I agree with you. I called last week and I said that if I thought that if SMU won by a field goal or last second this overtime, I figured they would go. And it does come back on Alabama. Sure. It does. I said it when it happened. That was in my opinion. That loss is almost unforgivable, really. Especially when you had 14 players that, wasn't playing on offense. They lost them all on one side of the ball. There's just no excuse for it. But the problem, I do have a lot of problems with the committee, though. You have a team in Clemson that beats SMU, and SMU still winds up in front of them. I don't understand that one too much. I know it's a 12-team playoff, and you got to have 12, but I don't. Nick Saban's perfect. I mean, he's 100% correct. You should never have had Indiana or SMU as high as they were. And you put yourself in a bind when you do that. You do. Because you can't knock them out. And it sucks, too, because this time last year, Georgia had all of one loss to Alabama by 3, and they dropped to, I think, from 1 to 6. Is that not correct? And so they missed the playoffs. So you're setting a precedent that, it doesn't count this year, but it counted last year. And that's what I didn't understand about that either, the championship game.
Well, you can't compare last year to this year where you're talking 4 to 12. There's no comparison between the two playoffs.
Well, to me, is it a completely different committee as well?
I don't know about that. I'm just saying, you got four teams versus 12 teams. Like Georgia would have been
but
in last year.
If you use the same guidelines.
Hello?
We lost Tony.
For the winner. So and that's this year too.
Using the same guidelines, it's the fault of the people that are doing it. And when the backlash comes, it just comes. Let me tell you something. Anytime you want to do something, you do it better, or you change differently when you're thinking that somebody's been screwed. That's your mindset, and the mindset was close. the vote was very close.
Yeah, I think he also, Tony, and you agree with this because you understand it, the committee was given a very tough job with the seeding process that they have now. Like, you're going to have a Clemson, SMU, you're going to have one or two of those because you can't really get the best 12 in there. And if those guys win their way in, like these two teams that are getting buys, Arizona State and Boise, they shouldn't be getting buys. But it's a bad format, so the committee can only do what they can do. They have a bad system to implement.
Well, coaches, coming from basketball backgrounds like y'all do, and Coach Sanders, I'd really love your opinion on this, both of y'all. Do y'all agree with the automatic qualifier that if you win a conference championship, like in a game setting, you automatically in? Do y'all like that format in basketball as well?
I think it makes your competition, your interest a little bit better during the football season. If you have, I'm a champion. You were runner up to me. That kind of thing. I think you have to study that a little bit because these ADs, as Barry said, need money and they need to make more money. And I think anytime you play for something and there's going to be somebody number one and somebody number two, Tony, and I know I'm trying to be number one.
Yeah, I like it. I don't think they should get a bye, but I think if you win your conference, you should get in. And I like it when one non-Power 4 team gets in. It gives the little guy a chance as well. That's one of the most exciting things about the NCAA tournament is little guy knocking off the big guy. And we always want to give the benefit of the doubt to the big guy. Alabama can just blame themselves. That's all they got to do. And Greg Byrne and them got to stop talking about the strength of schedule, this, that, and the other. Just win the games you're supposed to win, and it wouldn't have been a problem. So,
Barry, you cannot show up unprepared like they were. That's the bottom line of all of this. Everything was in front of them, and we would have probably been as high as a 5 seed had we kept, But, let me ask you one other thing. Had Texas not been rated in the top 5, let's say they were ranked 8th going into that, where do y'all think they'd be right now? Because they didn't beat anybody.
No, they're benefiting by being in the SEC. That's why they're ranked so high, because they didn't beat anybody. But, they did schedule Michigan on the road. And so, they didn't know at that point. Yeah. So, anyway, thank you, Tony.
Well, all right, gentlemen. Y'all have a good morning. All
right, back to the Yellowwood Highline. Morning, Philip.
Morning.
Good morning. Hey, and I'll tell you, Barry, the worst-case scenario for Alabama, had they beaten Oklahoma, the worst-case scenario would be Alabama would probably be hosting a first-round game in a few days in Tuscaloosa. The best-case scenario, had they beaten Oklahoma and won out like they were supposed to do, and beaten and won the SEC championship game, is they get basically almost a month off and would have been playing. So the Oklahoma game, as you stated before, Barry, it was a monstrously huge loss in so many ways, And J.C. Sherbert, he hit the nail on the head last week, your guest last week, when he said, I have no idea what this committee is going to do. And he's right, because the conversation was kind of geared around SMU getting in, and he was exactly right. I had the same fear that he did, that SMU might fight back gallantly and lose in dramatic style, and that's exactly what happened. Because
at halftime, SMU was out at halftime.
They were, and then Clemson just started playing kind of really bad ball.
Now, I will say this: like that one roughing the passer they called on SMU was the worst call. For Clemson, I don't even know did they even have a penalty in the game? So it looked like officiating was kind of geared a little bit there towards Clemson, and that ended up getting 2 ACC teams in. I'm not saying they did it on purpose, but you go through the game and don't get a penalty.
That's right. And if I understood Wimp correctly, and Wimp's right, I agree with him. You have got to do all you can as a team like Alabama to avoid the committee putting feelings into this. Their feelings, because it was all about data points up until SMU battled back and lost in dramatic style. All of a sudden, feelings took over, and man, that's where the danger comes in.
Well, feelings is a huge factor. The way you play and the way you vote.
Well, if they would have come out of that final poll before the championship weekend, and they would have had SMU
That's
11 or 12, there wouldn't have been the backlash. Maybe a little bit from the SMU people, but not people saying, man, wait a minute, Alabama's going to be in this thing? So that's where it got kind of screwed up there. But at the end of the day, Alabama's got to blame themselves. They can't blame strength of schedule. They can't. Fans, quit talking about changing your schedule. You want to play a tough schedule because I think they will – strength of schedule will be much bigger next year and then in the new format after next year. So I would keep those schedules tough as I could.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's true, and that's why you do have to be careful, because all of a sudden you go to canceling Ohio State and Florida State and all that and pick up West Carolina and other teams like that. You're messing yourself up.
Well, they're throwing the one big game in there, Philip. I talked to him. They throw the one big game in there, so you'll buy the season tickets.
Yeah,
you'll swallow the Western Carolinas and those kind of people because you got the one big game in there. Notre Dame, somebody like that.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Thank you, Philip.
All right, have a good.
All right, back to the Yellowwood Hotline. Good morning, Pat.
Good morning, guys. Coach Sanderson, you don't get enough credit for being the great recruiter that you were. You had some fabulous players. Bob Orey and Latrell Sprewell. And back when you were recruiting those players, how hard was that to recruit them? Did they actually want to come to Alabama? Did you have fits keeping Bobby Knight and away from those kind of players?
Well, I did one time with Reginald King, one of the best players we ever had. Give me the. I don't get all into this, but people don't want to hear this. But I've been working on him for 2 years, Reginald King. Now, you answer this for me. So he walks up to me and he says to me, Barry knows, Coach, would you be mad at me if I signed with Indiana? What was I supposed to say? What was I supposed to say?
I love you. I love you, and I want you to. And I want you playing for me.
Yeah. Let me. You know what I said myself? Somebody go over there and visit with his mother again. No, I said, yeah, I'd be upset with you. I'd be darned upset with you if you went to Indiana. After all the work I've done on you for 2 years, go ahead. I just threw that in. Go ahead.
Well, I just you don't get enough credit for the type of players that you brought into the university, and I feel like there was a whole lot more competition as far as great basketball coaches back at the time that you coached than really what it is today. Do you not agree with me?
Well, yeah, but everything that we do now is based on money. Everything. Was there some cheating done? A little bit. But everything that we do, I think Barry and I agree on this too. Everything is behind the scenes is based on coming up with money and staying with money. Do you stay? If you get more money, you stay or you go. And so it's harder. It's harder in some ways, and it's easier in other ways, because if you're a team, a program that has a lot of money, you're going to outbid those guys who don't have that kind of money all the time.
Yeah, well, I read that just back in the day when you was coaching, that all of a sudden there would be farm boys up in the Midwest that would get a new combine and things that they had different ways of getting things to people compared to what they did.
Well, there were ways to do that, but it's just everything in this life changes. How you recruit, how you play. We played totally different when I was coaching than they played, and they play great today. But we just happen to play differently when everything changes.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you that I appreciated back when you were coaching basketball at Alabama. You were fun to watch.
Thank you, Pat.
Have a blessed day, Coach.
Thank you, buddy. I thought Pat was going to call and get on me about saying Alabama shouldn't have been. I also give the SEC a little credit in basketball. Missouri last night beats Kansas. Auburn absolutely destroys Richmond. A&M beats Texas Tech. UConn did go to Texas and win. Vanderbilt, wow, they're surprised, 9-1. They knock off TCU. LSU wins and Mississippi State wins. So the SEC is off to a great start.
I went to my first Auburn game, Barry.
Yeah, how was it?
In the new arena. It was okay. They do have a home court advantage, no doubt about it.
Yeah, Neville Arena. That thing's where they got the students makes a big difference. And so hopefully if Alabama ever builds theirs, that they'll put the students where Auburn has them. All right, we'll take the break here. We'll get to Max Howell. You listen to Tide 100.9, 1230 AM WTBC. It's the home of Alabama sports.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. We got a situation on this Monday morning on Highway 82 westbound at Shelley Hughes Road. Now, this is an overturned vehicle in the median and the left shoulder. Both the left shoulder and median are blocked from that, and it is causing some onlooker delays. And then you've got a little bit of a delay, intersection slow go, so not such a big deal. Lurleen Wallace on the northbound lanes to McFarland Boulevard, starting to thicken up a bit. With your Tuscaloosa traffic now, I'm Tammy Thomas.
Here's what's trending on the Tuscaloosa thread.
Good Monday morning. Drought conditions across West Alabama should be rolled back a bit with all the rainfall we have received so far. And the rain still forecast. Some 3 inches of rainfall possible through tomorrow night. The rain should help extinguish a 10-acre wildfire just off US 82 in West
Square Media Tuscaloosa radio websites. Fill out the Advertise Here form. Put the power of Town Square Media to work for your business.
2-time state champion and 2-time NIT champion Barry Sanderson breaks down the latest in sports on Inside the Locker Room on Tide 100.9.
Inside the Locker Room, Pressure Treated Pine from Great Southern Wood brings you this 7 o'clock hour. We'll get right to the Yellowwood Hotline. He, former assistant football coach at Florida State Ole Miss, radio personality throughout the Southeast, joins us every Monday. Max Howell. Good morning, Max. How are you?
Hey, Max. Doing great, guys. How are you guys?
We're good. Go ahead, Dad.
Max, when he got down to a different team, Alabama didn't quite come out so well. I have said it's backlash, that people changed their mind because of all the criticism they were getting against Miami. No use me talking. You just give your opinion about what happened. I believe a lot of it's backlash.
That could very well be. Maybe the committee didn't want to take what they took last year with Florida State, but last year when Alabama went over Florida State, that was the right decision. Just look at the next week when Georgia played Florida State, you know. And I don't think any different. I mean, who did you tell me who SMU beat? I don't know where you watched that ball game with them. You know, Friday night? Yeah, Friday night, I guess. But the fact is, I mean,
I'll let Barry give his opinion on that. Barry's got a good opinion on that, and I don't want to.
Go ahead. Yeah, Saturday night. I think it was at halftime. Max, SMU was out.
Right.
Then they fought their way back, and they didn't cover the kick and got the guy big run back, and so of course the guy makes the field goal. But I think once they fought back and tied the game, it flipped. It kicked Alabama out.
But Barry, what I can contend is what they had to do to get there. I mean, come on. I mean, they played nobody, and if they go back to the committee. As I recall, they want the 12 best teams in the country, and they don't have the 12 best teams in the country.
Well, the format doesn't allow for the 12 best, though.
No, absolutely doesn't. You're absolutely. I'm sure you watched yesterday the selection committee and all, but Coach Saban pretty well laid it out. If you don't play a competitive schedule week in and week out, you've watered it down, and I couldn't agree more with him. I mean, he nailed it right on the head. Now that's well and done. It's just set. I looked at the rankings. I looked at them again this morning. I think Texas, Georgia got a great opportunity to get back to play for the championship when it's all over. The brackets line up that way, particularly in the first 2 rounds. So, it comes back to the coaching staff getting teams ready to play week in and week out. And if you lay an egg out there somewhere, and I know I've already been there to talk about getting them ready every week. But that's why that's why the coaches are hired, the good coaches. They're capable of getting them ready. They may not win by or cover the spread or win by 20 or whatever, but the fact they win the ball game. You can't go cruising into place and let a team that's doesn't even have a winning season beat you. That's another,
Yeah,
black mark.
I thought Coach Saban brought a good point that when the committee didn't honor strength of schedule on the rankings prior to last weekend, that you never should have had, even Indiana probably, or SMU 8. You have them around 11 or 12, and you make that ACC kind of a play-in game because you punish them on the strength of schedule. They didn't do that, so when you put them in 8, then that game ends up like it did. And I think you go to Dad's point, then there was going to be too much backlash. In Alabama, Greg Byrne and those guys can talk about the strength of schedule. At the end of the day, you got to win at Oklahoma and Vanderbilt. You could drop another game and be 10-2, and you'd have been in the tournament, been in the playoff. So blaming all that to me instead of just looking in the mirror saying we didn't do what we were supposed to do and we put it in the committee's hands. It would have been no decision had they went to Oklahoma and been ready to play, Max.
Yep, I agree 100%. I mean, I think we all talked about it right after the game. It was like, how did they show up and not as prepared as they were? And then I got to give it to Georgia, too. They fought back. It was the number 2 quarterback, the number 2 punter.
Boy,
they lost it too. They came back with a vengeance. In fact, the number 2 quarterback showed a whole new wrinkle that I guarantee you that nobody else was ready for. I mean, he took the ball and ran. And that was
him getting hurt helped him.
Yeah, it did. I agree. I think it did too. I really do.
I don't know how in the world in that overtime when that kid got his helmet knocked off that he held onto the ball. How did he hold onto that ball? If he fumbles that ball, they lose. That was one of the most vicious hits I've seen all year. For that guy to hold onto the ball, and then kind of ironic that the starting quarterback comes in and hands the ball off to win the game. But Georgia with 2 big-time overtime wins there with Georgia Tech and in that game there.
Yeah, back-to-back on top of that.
Yeah.
That tells me about the resiliency of Georgia, the number of players they got, the preparation that Kirby puts them through. And I think literally he's emerged as the best college football coach in the country right now.
Were you surprised? I mean, Greg Sankey was standing about 5 feet from him, and he called him out in front of everybody, talking about the schedule that Greg Sankey and the SEC put us through. We need some rest. Right. Is there some friction there? But wow, I could not believe he did that with Greg right there. So.
Well, I mean, but as long as they abide by the rules, Sankey can't do a whole lot. I mean, that's an opinion. You know that. So, and he expressed it. Of course, sometimes we all have been in a position where, you're under a lot of pressure, you're going to say what you think.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might have rethought it later. But anyway, you can't knock him. The program's moving along, and I'll be interested to see how they progress. Of course, I think they win their first. They got the win of Indiana Notre Dame in the first round. I think they win that one too. So anyway,
is Alabama a football school if they don't show up for the Michigan game?
That's going to be interesting, Coach. That's how they evaluate that. Under the old coaches, the previous coaching staff, they'd show up. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I don't know about this bunch. I'll be honest with you. I don't know what they do in preparation week by week. It was nationally known how Coach Saban coached and prepared his team, and his win-loss record proved that. So that's going to be interesting to see. It really is. And I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on that, just to kind of watch and see. I think the loss and not making the playoffs with the talent level that Alabama had this year, I think it's going to cause some rethinking about where Alabama really is now and going forward. Not where they've been, but where they go from here.
What do you do about quarterback in this game? I mean, Jalen Milroe is probably not coming back. You got to find out what you got in Ty Simpson, don't you? Is there any way to orchestrate that to where you just sit Milroe down and say, hey, it's been a good deal there and play Ty Simpson and he gets some game experience there so you can kind of see what you got? Is that possible, Max?
I think that's a game time decision, and this is why I think that Alabama's kind of right now in the minds of a lot of the fans. Who is Alabama right now? What about next year? Do you take a chance on losing that bowl game? I don't think so. I think Alabama needs to do what they can to. They got all spring and got next year early, and I don't know if I hadn't seen the schedule for next year, but we already know strength of schedule is not going to matter. In getting to the playoffs, it's number of wins and who you beat. So the fact is if it was me, if he's the best shot, I'd play him. I may get Simpson in there. I'd do a little more than Sarkanian. I would just put he played Arch one play in the last two
Bobby Bowden have done?
He'd have kept number ones out there, Coach. I'm gonna tell you, he'd have gone for the win, because that's remember that most of his time Florida State was an independent, so they had to fight for every win they could get, and so I think I just look at it from a fan perspective. Coach Burns and him have to do that, and I think they go for the win. And maybe they put the number two and number three in the third or fourth quarter, depending on the score.
I mean, who put this playoff format together? A third grader. This is the worst format. I mean, first of all, I agree the conference champions should be in, but together. So you're sitting there as Oregon, and you've won every game you played. And you got to play the winner of Tennessee and Ohio State, and you got Texas and Clemson. Clemson wouldn't even have been in this playoff. Arizona State's fine; they're getting about. And the winner of that game gets Arizona State, and Oregon's got to play Ohio State. It's not even. It's ridiculous, Max.
It is. I don't know. That's the whole thing. I think is watered down to that position. In the committee based of 2 years, had they stayed the same format for the
they got 2 years of this. Yeah,
right. So that ought to tell you about how conferences really, how the individual schools look at the schedule. I know it's a little late to try to change the schedule, but it has been done.
Was this schedule, Barry, put together prior to who's going to be in it, or after they decide who's going to be it, then fixed?
You talking about the format?
Well, not the format so much. The schools, how that could happen. Was it set in stone as regardless of how they were going to play?
Well, it was set in stone as to how the seeding process was going to go.
How the process,
the top 5 highest ranked teams were going to get in, and the top 4 were going to get the bye. So you got Arizona State and Boise State both with byes. Which even they know they don't deserve a bye, but they got it. So,
and the whole, who do they answer to? I mean, remember this is an independent committee.
That's what I
it was up to this. Yeah, who they don't have to answer to anybody. They just come up with their own set of rules. And,
the committee didn't make this format though. I don't know who made the format. Maybe they did. I don't know who made the format. It's a bad format.
I think the committee did, Barry. I really do.
Well, it's bad.
Everything I've read, because remember they are appointed to as an independent group, not answerable to anybody, not even NCAA, not anybody, and so they're kind of free will. They do it themselves, and a lot of that, if you look through it, is that old adage about spreading the wealth. You can't tell me that is not the fact. And that was another reason in the back of my mind Alabama would make it, because there's going to be a heck of a lot more people that watch Alabama play than SMU. I can guarantee you.
Well, yeah, I don't know. But Alabama can only blame themselves, and Ole Miss can only blame themselves. So,
very true.
You can't lose to Kentucky at home and then go to Florida and lose. You can lose one of those, but you can't lose both of them. And when you do that, you don't have a gripe. I don't know, Max. How do you see this playoff going? I like the home games here, but do you see any of these home teams losing in the first round?
Of course, I'll be honest with you. I've watched more. I'm more concerned about Texas and Georgia than anybody else.
Sure.
In that first round. That's why I picked that out and kind of tracked them all the way through. And I'd love to see nothing more than see those two play for the national championship. Now, where they get that far, that's a long time, guys. That's another month of practice every day. And how do you manage that? You got to recruit. You got to get ready for that. For the first, you got a month basically. before you got that first ball game. But you got to do some preparation. And then what is the depth, part of getting your practice schedule ready to play that opponent, because you got to win if you're going to survive. And I think because of the conflict that we've seen already, all those teams in that first round, that's going to be some good football. I'll tell you, there'll be some things that probably we hadn't seen before. And so the teams that do the best preparation and manage their time with practice and rest will be the teams that will survive it.
Well,
and, go ahead.
Would we have anybody that would refuse to play in of the 12 teams? Any player?
No, I don't think so. Maybe some of those on the third or fourth team, that was going to get the portal anyway. So, I mean, I see this one where Alabama's already, that's bowl games, but Alabama's already had 3 wide receivers jump in the portal yesterday.
Yeah.
So, and it's no telling how many more. And there'll be some other schools the same way. But those in the playoff, they'll encourage those kids to play. I don't know, they'll use different motivation. The lease won't be money, but either way, they'll encourage them to stay and try to get, because all those
they can transfer after they play in the playoff games. They can transfer after that.
Absolutely.
Well, maybe if you go to the championship, you're not playing until
if they lose.
January the 20th. Most of the schools have already started. So
I'm asking.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a problem. I don't know how you handle that. These kids come in and say, "Look, I'll stay here for the playoffs, but I'm leaving." So what? I mean,
right.
I don't know what you do. It's the timing of everything, Max, it's tough, to decide recruiting, portal, who's leaving, who you going to go recruit, and then you got to get ready.
Right.
You're saying a month, but you don't have a month now. Like the other games, they're not this weekend, but next weekend. And then the other, so they have 3 weeks, not a month. And then some of these teams are playing in less than 2 weeks this first round, so it comes at you pretty fast.
Well, they've already, they've already been through a 12-game season up to now. Yeah. The injury factor, I think, even more than just the fatigue factor, will play a role. How bad was Beck hurt? Dislocated elbow, or what? I saw him hanging that arm down when that one play went in there at the end. But I don't think they won't miss much of a beat. He'd bring a different dimension with that number 2 guy that came in there. I mean, nobody was ready for him running the football like he did. And, that to me just showed another spark that Georgia had, and it picked that team up at that particular time. So I think all that kind of stuff, those guys, is, that's a week by week and school by school, or coaching staff by coaching staff, how they prepare for that, the way they get ready, and the importance it is at every school. I mean, some of those schools, they're there, they like it out, but some schools just, they weigh their football program at a higher level than other schools do. I'm not real sure how many of the Big Ten, for example, Indiana, what is the value of the Indiana program overall for their football team to be in the playoffs? I don't know that it carries that much weight.
Yeah, I hear people now talking about, they've gone away from the neutral site games, Max, like they went to Wisconsin this year. Wisconsin's returning. They got a home and home with Ohio State. They got one with Florida State, saying we don't need to play these games. But these formats will change. Like in basketball, used to be win 20 games, you're in. Then they said, no, strength of schedule has got to factor in. So they're going to change these things. Plus, you got to sell tickets. And so people that are talking about water that schedule down, well, when you got $22 million going out to the athletes, I don't think you can afford to water the schedule down. You got to have people buying these tickets, don't you, Max, to keep the machine running.
Well, I think, though, Alabama's not really a good example there, Bear, because you got so many loyal fans.
Yeah.
But you got a larger base. And, I was in graduate school. I did some studies on attendance and bases and support groups across the country. And Ole Miss had about 200,000. Alabama had 600,000 people that were basically indirectly affiliated financially with the University of Alabama. And that's a huge difference. And that's why I've said since I coached there that Ole Miss will never win a national championship because they can't compete on numbers, if nothing else. And they do it. Lane's doing a good job getting that team there, but look where he is. I mean, he lost a couple of games he shouldn't have ever lost.
Yeah.
And that's because I think sometimes they all kind of get full of themselves and get full of the program, and they kind of think they're going to glide through, but that is not the case anymore. That's why I do think that Coach Saban is absolutely right in the strength of schedule. As you pointed out, basketball had to go to that, and I think football has to go to that for a playoff system.
Yeah, and everybody was, I don't know, people were for these super conferences. Well, when you have all these super conferences, these schedules are imbalanced. You're not playing the good teams. Like Clemson and SMU didn't have to play the good teams in the few good teams. Texas got a break on the schedule. Now, those things could change, but that's what these super conferences do, don't they, Max?
Very true. That's exactly what they do. And in a lot of the games now, though, guys, I'm sure are still, the conference games and all are ironed out years in advance. But the out-of-conference games are still up to the individual schools. And if you pay enough money, you get an adequate schedule. Let's put it that way, to come in there. But do you want somebody? Do you want another Mercer or programs like that that just go get a huge win? Right. The way the committee looks at it right now, they give as much credibility to beat a Mercer like that as they do a Vanderbilt, even in the conference. So those are the things that's got to get ironed out somewhere. It obviously won't be by next year. But if the playoff, and I had the word out now that they want to raise the number of playoffs up maybe 14 or 16 teams. I think I heard that somewhere yesterday as well. So I don't know. I think we're in a transition period, just like the game itself is in a transition period. That's everybody's going to have to get used to it, I think.
Yeah. Is there anything else from Max?
No, I don't have anything, Barry.
Max, it's kind of weird, Alabama not being in the playoff here.
Yep.
You have a hard time getting people excited about, I don't even know what bowl that is in Tampa. They change these bowl names so much. I was hoping Alabama would play Miami, but playing Michigan, that's a little bit of a downer to me.
Well, they trying to, I guess, recapture that, that matchup last year. But the fact is that Miami was the third. Alabama was the first out. Miami was second.
Yeah.
Why not match those two up?
Yeah, it makes
I thought
sense.
I thought it'd be a great, fan base. Anyway, if you didn't make the playoffs, that would be the next place to go watch a football game. But hey, it's over, and we got to this, and all we think is week by week now.
Yeah, I wanted to see like Ole Miss or South Carolina play Colorado. But some of those matchups I wanted to see that didn't happen. So anyway, Max, you cooking anything this weekend?
No, I'm just going to kind of sit back. We did cook this past weekend, and it was it was good. We had big barbecue with had both pork and some steaks on the grill as well. And, in fact, we finished them up last night. If you'll know the truth, we cooked so much food. But our guys have all kind of settled in now. The season's over. They all into deer hunting. And, they all spend the night at the respective hunting clubs. And so I don't have an audience. Let's put it that way to feed. So I sit back and watch ball games for a while.
Yeah, put your feet up. And then
Here we go.
All right, we'll talk to you next week about it, Max. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Max. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
All right. There's Max Howell. Always fun having a conversation with Max. We want to thank Yellowwood Pressure Treated Pine from Great Southern. Always appreciate those guys. Always remember, if you want to build the fence, the deck, the pergola, there's only one choice. Go to yellowwood.com to find the dealer that is closest to you. If it doesn't have that yellow tag on it, then you don't want it. Phone lines will be open 205-342-9904. You're listening to Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC, the home of Alabama sports.
Coming up on The Game with Ryan Fowler. Coming up on the Monday edition of the game, starting at 2 p.m., we're either going to be celebrating or we're going to be crying. We'll talk about Alabama's playoff chances. At that point, will be known. We'll recap it with Drudy Arnold. We'll talk to Martin Houston. We'll talk to Barrett Salee right here on the game with Ryan Fowler, starting at 2 p.m. on Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC, your home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
The longest running sports program in Tuscaloosa. The Game with Ryan Fowler. Weekdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center, dealing with an overturned vehicle on Highway 82 in the westbound lanes at Shelley Hughes Road. Now, all is on the left shoulder, so all of main lanes are open, but they are causing quite a looky-loo delay. And then we've also got some heavy traffic right now moving.
In a comeback, I think.
Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide, based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Wet weather headlines are forecast today and tonight. Cloudy with occasional rain. The high today 66, the low tonight 50. Tomorrow cloudy, rain likely, maybe a thunderstorm in spots. The high tomorrow afternoon in the mid to upper 60s at 67. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 62 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
WTBC Tuscaloosa and W265CG Tuscaloosa, a Town Square media station. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Steve DeSager.
The New York Mets agreed to a 15-year deal with outfielder Juan Soto worth $765 million. It's the largest contract in sports history, and it has no deferred money. There is an opt-out after 5 years. In the Sunday night NFL game at Kansas City, the Chiefs clinched the AFC West title for a 9th straight season, edging the Chargers 19-17, thanks to a 31-yard field goal on the final play. Matthew Wright was 4 for 4 on field goals for KC, including hitting from 47 and 50 yards. The Rams were 44-42 winners over Buffalo, ending the Bills' 7-game winning streak. Josh Allen in the loss, 3 touchdown passes and 3 one-yard touchdown runs. Philadelphia trailed at home in the fourth.
Also take care of any problems you got with a damp crawl space or a crack in your foundation. They even do pest control and lawn care. Full service Alabama Professional Services at alabamaprofessional.com.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Wet weather headlines are forecast today and tonight. Cloudy with occasional rain. The high today 66, the low tonight 50. Tomorrow cloudy, rain likely, maybe a thunderstorm in spots. The high tomorrow afternoon in the mid to upper 60s at 67. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 63 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Inside the locker room with former Crimson Tide basketball coach Wimp Sanderson and his son, former SEC and ACC assistant basketball coach Barry Sanderson. It's time to take you inside the locker room on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back to the second hour of Inside the Locker Room. I want to thank Allstate Insurance agent Andrew Kniffer helped make this 8 o'clock hour possible. At 4705 McFarland Boulevard, Suite 3 over in Northport. Give Andrew and the staff a call, 205-722-9201. You'll be in good hands with Allstate with Andrew Kniffer. All right, get to the Andrew Kniffer hotline. Get Cowboy in. Good morning, Cowboy.
Hey, Cowboy.
And Barry, Coach.
Hey, buddy.
What's up?
Y'all doing all right?
Yes, sir. How are you?
I'm fine. Hey, I was just thinking, now that the playoff thing is settled, and we've got a year into the Kalen DeBoer era, and we need to, he brought Austin Mack with him from Washington. He had some transfers at Washington. We need to, get this thing cleaned out and let it get going and see what Kalen DeBoer is all about. And he brought the Austin Mack with him from Washington. Let's just start, that's the guy he brought with him, wanted to be the quarterback probably. So let's get it going and see what he's got. now that we've got a year into it. A lot of these Saban players are going to be transferring out probably or graduating out. You know, we're fixing to find out what the real Kalen DeBoer program's about. In major college football, he's only spent 2 years at school, so this will be the second year. He usually done a big year his second year, so let's see what it's all about, man. What do you think?
I don't think you can get all the Saban players out. He's only been here 1 year, so you better not get all the Saban players out. I think they got some. I don't know. We'll see how many guys hit the portal. We got about 6 in there now. Today's the day that it opens, so I imagine there'll be a lot of SEC schools with guys leaving. I worry about at least running backs that didn't get the ball leaving. Kalen DeBoer's going to convince these guys that the offense will be different next year. This offense was more of Jalen running the football, which you mean he's not throwing it to as many guys and not handing it off, but it'll be a different offense now where those guys buy in, Cowboy, to it being a different offense next year.
Well, that's his job is that.
Yeah.
I would say probably the head coach, single wing football like we ran this year probably won't work next year.
Right.
And, like LSU did last year in that bowl game, Jaden Daniels didn't play in it. Nussmeier did. He brought him back against Wisconsin. It serves no purpose for Alabama football for Jalen Milroe to play in that game. I mean, you need, in today's era of football, paying players and all this stuff, you need to see what Ty Simpson can do in a live game.
I agree with you now. Whether they'll do that or whether Jalen deserves that will be up to those guys to decide whether he wants to play. I don't know what his draft stock is, but those are all decisions that the coaching staff and we'll have to sit down with these players and sit down together and make those decisions. That's why they're paid the big bucks.
Yeah. Are you upset over Alabama not making it? What's your feeling?
No. They did it to themselves, Cowboy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of the way that I've looked at it. That Mississippi State basketball team, they're pretty good this year so far, aren't they?
Yeah, they beat Pitt the other night, and they're playing pretty good. There are a lot of teams that are pretty good. They're a little bit difficult to tell exactly who's who, but Tennessee right now has kind of jumped to number one. But Tennessee, Alabama, and Auburn, Kentucky would be four you come to your mind.
Yeah, Coach and Barry, how did Missouri go from 0-17 in the league last year to beating Kansas at home yesterday? I mean, I know they probably transfer portal, but how did they improve the team well enough to beat Kansas?
I don't know. They've only lost one game. So they had a great crowd in there yesterday. And Coach Gates, which I thought was a classy move. I think I heard Fran Fraschilla say I wouldn't leave, but he called timeout and told Bill Self to get his team off the floor, saying, hey, get them out of here. And the announcer said, no, I'd leave them there and let them see it. But you have that many people coming on, and Bill Self finally shook his hand and took his players off the floor right before that that court storm came. So the SEC's rules aren't very good at keeping these people off the field and off the court.
Yeah, they need to do something like that. Hey, what do you think about the Connecticut-Texas game? Connecticut kind of controlled that thing the whole game, had a big lead, and kind of toyed with them, I guess, second half and everything. But why didn't Danny Hurley take Jenny Buss's money? I mean, my goodness, take her money. But I guess he didn't want to deal with Bronny.
His wife said we ain't moving. So,
yeah, but that's been generational money.
He's getting generational money now. He's making like $9 million. So he's making or $7 million. He's making a lot. So
he's a character. Did y'all see him there at the end of the game giving Doug Childs a little talk, gave him a butt pat and grin?
He's something else. Yeah, he's something else. And also give Kentucky credit, man. What a win against Gonzaga late Saturday night. They were down pretty bad at the half, came back and won that game. So Mark Pope doing a great job at Kentucky. So.
Yeah, I'm happy for him. It's good to see Kentucky basketball, with some energy. They just they didn't have any energy the last 4 or 5 years. I didn't think watching them.
Yeah, so that was the best thing that happened to them, Cal leaving, him coming. So thank you, Cowboy.
Thanks, Cowboy. One thing, Phillip kind of had this thing nailed. He kind of thought it might be a close inning to SMU and Clemson. He got what he was thinking.
No doubt. Couldn't get any closer than that. Thank you, Cowboy.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, guys.
All right, back up to the Yellowwood hotline. Get Tom in. Good morning, Tom.
Hey, Tom.
Morning, Coach. Morning, Barry. Is Doug on this morning?
He is.
I want to hear him talk about JT and his weekend. It's pretty good. 300,000.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll ask him about it.
He played pretty good this weekend.
Yeah, he sure did. He jumped up here to second for a while. And
yeah, he did.
The big man jumped all over on the last round.
He gets as good as I've seen him hit in 10 years.
Yeah, well, combined putting with it, he made a few putts, but got to that last round, the big man just ran over all of them.
I tell you what, he's just flat out good, Coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, Scheffler shoots a 63 yesterday.
Yeah, that's pretty strong.
Yeah.
I was going to ask y'all this. Do you think that Herb Street has carried this dog stuff too far?
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
It is so stupid. And his whining during the broadcast of the game, whining about, well, he hit him hard, but I don't think he really meant to. All that kind of crap. I mean, what is wrong with that guy?
I'm going to ask you this, too. And
Pro Georgia.
I don't know that he was wrong, but at the end of that Clemson SMU game, and I respect the way he did it. I don't think Greg McElroy gave Alabama any love about having any chance of getting in the playoff. He was pretty much pro SMU, which that's how he feels, and I think he should do it that way. A lot of Alabama people were turned off by that he didn't. Where Nick Saban always kind of takes Alabama's side, Greg McElroy certainly didn't. Your thoughts about that, Tom?
Yeah, I got thoughts about it. Greg's very professional, high IQ, accurate, and fair. Calls it like he sees it. That's all you can ask. He's honest about it. Does he have the credibility to say the things that Coach Saban does? No.
That's a good evaluation. I do a little show with him. That's a good evaluation.
Is Coach Saban fair? Is Coach Saban fair? He's kind of got his Alabama glasses on up there a little bit.
Yeah, Coach Saban's smart as well, and he has a way of saying things.
Yeah, he does.
Presenting it to where, you go, I mean, you can disagree with him and not even get mad about it.
Yeah, he says it in a way to where, and I think he kind of blamed the committee for having SMU sitting there at 8 and putting themselves in a bad spot where they'd have had them at 11 or 12 going in and made that a play-in game. That wouldn't have been the backlash to what happened there. So I think that was a good point that nobody else brought out. So,
well, I thought he did a great job. I just, but Greg, people are too hard on Greg. He cannot, he needs a job. He's got a family, and he can't get on there and say, well, Coach Saban used to do this, and Alabama said that, and he can't do stuff like that.
That's what the Bama fans want him to do.
I know it. That they're stupid, though. Have you ever listened to any of them?
Yeah.
Don't you think they're stupid?
Would there be a big crowd at the Michigan-Alabama game?
No.
You going, Tom?
No. If my shoulder wasn't hurt, I might go and play golf down there. My brother's got a place down there.
That's a long drive. That traffic on that road going down Florida.
That. I mean,
no, you drive.
Go to Birmingham, you get a little direct flight on one of those smaller Delta planes. You're there in an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah, so we'll see what how much that ticket gonna cost.
I don't know.
Ain't gonna be a tough ticket, is it?
God, no, not at that. Is it at where the Buccaneers play?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right across the street from Legends Field, and where the Yankees have spring training. No, it'll be a bunch of tickets.
Yeah, if you're looking for a cheap Christmas gift, buy some tickets to that game. It'd be cheap. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Take care.
All right, well,
man, let's talk it up a little bit more about me winning the Blue Plate.
Did you win it?
Well, I picked just my home six.
Actually, you did win it, but when Chase tweeted it out, he had your record a little better than what it actually was. So you and Chase been working behind the scenes.
No, I didn't even know. I didn't see that.
Chase gave you 9 wins. You weren't at 9, but Chase,
I think I was at 9.
He's a homer.
I was at 9.
He's a homer. I think you were at 8. I think you were like 8 and 7.
I was 2 up.
You may be 9 now.
At 9. That was 9.
We'll see how Doug's picks turned out. He picked 4 games this week, and Doug's hot.
And you didn't know I won it?
No, I knew you won it.
Oh.
Oregon's pretty good, but they got a bad draw.
Yeah.
You have to play. Who's going to win? Ohio State or Tennessee? Who's going to win that first game?
Tennessee won't. I don't know.
That's at Ohio State.
Is that at Ohio State?
It's going to be cold.
Ohio State.
Yeah. All right, you listen to Tide 100.9, 1230 AM WTBC. It's the home of Alabama sports.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. Well, Monday morning is starting to get a little more volume, and we do still have the accident working on Highway 82 westbound. At Shelley Hughes Road, this is on the left shoulder. Onlooker delays is pretty much what you have to deal with that. Otherwise, traffic on Lurleen Wallace is a little...
398-9845. 800-398-9845. That's 800-398-9845.
Crimson Tide Today is presented on Tide 100.9, WTBC 1230 by BMW of Tuscaloosa. Online at bmwoftuscaloosa.com.
From the University of Alabama, this is Crimson Tide Today. It's daily update on Bama Sports and is brought to you by CB&S Bank. Bank anywhere, at any time, with CB&S Bank's digital solutions. Managing your finances has never been so easy. Hello again, everybody. I'm Roger Hoover. The 11th-ranked Alabama Crimson Tide football team will face off against the Michigan Wolverines in the ReliQuest Bowl at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, officials have announced. The contest will kick off on Tuesday, December 31st at 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern Time, and will be televised on ESPN. Our radio coverage across the network will begin at 8 a.m. Central for Alabama's appearance in the ReliQuest Bowl. It marks the second consecutive year and the third time since 2019 that the Crimson Tide and Wolverines will meet in a bowl matchup. The last time the two teams squared off came in last season's college football playoff semifinal at the Rose Bowl, with Michigan winning in overtime by the final score of 27-20. I'll have more in a moment.
CB&S Bank has a long history of stability and a legacy of serving our community's needs for generations. You could say we know a thing or two about tradition. We've been family, community, and financially strong since we began in 1906. Being a team player is part of our culture. That's why at CB&S Bank, we're proud to sponsor the University of Alabama Athletics and prouder to take the field or court with you. Visit cbsbank.com today. Member FDIC and Equal Housing Lender.
Join us tonight for Hey Coach and the Nate Oates Show, presented by Alpha Insurance, live at 6 p.m. Central at Baumhower's Victory Grill in Tuscaloosa. Hey Coach is available to listen to across our full radio network, plus the Varsity Network app, as well as a video stream on all CTSN social media platforms, and you can also catch it on demand on the Alabama Insider podcast. Crimson Tide Today is brought to you by CB&S Bank. Crimson Tide Today is a production of the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Mr. SEC Tournament Wimp Sanderson gives you his excellent analysis every weekday on Inside the Locker Room, right here on Tide 100.9.
Welcome back to Inside the Locker Room. Tuscaloosa Toyota. Go to TuscaloosaToyota.com. Look at all the great new inventory, the pre-owned inventory. Right there at the website, you can schedule a service, rent a Toyota. Those Camrys now 3.99 APR for the first 36 months. The RAV4 is a very popular vehicle down at Tuscaloosa Toyota. 3.99 APR for 36 months. Need something a little bigger. The Toyota Highlander. Those are nice Highlanders. My mother-in-law just got one. Beautiful cars. So get by there today and tell them that Wimp and Barry sent you. All right, get to the Tuscaloosa Toyota hotline. He is works for PGA Tour Radio, PGA Tour Live, CBS Sports headquarters, was over at the big golf tournament, I believe. I think he was there. Doug Bell. Good morning, Doug. How are you?
Hey, Doug. Hey, guys. Good morning to you on a rainy day, huh?
Where are you today, Doug?
I'm back home. After I enjoyed, Scotty Scheffler, guys. We talk golf. He's the best in the world. 82 weeks in a row now. He's been number one in the world. Shot 63 in the final round. And how about this, guys? Barry and Coach, we talk about these limited field events, which we have now, which brings the best players together. Only 20 guys in this tournament, but in the last 13 events where you have no cut, limited field, he has won 6 times, and nobody else has won more than once. So he dominates these events that have no cut because he plays better as the week goes on. And he was only trying to beat 19 guys, and he won. He was 25 under, and he won by 5 shots. JT had an opportunity playing with him in the final group. Just didn't play particularly well. Finished third at 18 under, and Nick Dunlap probably won't get invited back. Tiger gives these young guys an opportunity, unless he has a big year. But Nick played very poorly yesterday. Shot 4 over par, and he finished 1 under, 16th out of 20 guys. So, but the bottom line is, guys, Scotty Scheffler, and here's the deal. He changed his putting grip after the Tour Championship, went home to Dallas, and Randy Smith is the guy who taught him as a junior golfer. He's never switched instructors. And from putts 15 feet and in, he changed his grip, with the right hand, turns it upside down and pinches it with his thumb and forefinger. Some people call it the pencil grip. And he was dynamite, absolutely dynamite. So think about that now. The best player in the world now has this putting stroke and putting grip that is even better than it ever was before. So look out for 2025. Scotty Scheffler has been the player of the year 3 years in a row. He'll win this. He'll be named this in Maui in the first tournament. And now it looks like he's potentially headed for, 4 years in a row, maybe player of the year on the PGA Tour. That's some pretty rarefied air.
Yeah, I see Scheffler. He won $1 million for winning it. Justin Thomas was third, $300,000. Nick Dunlap 16th, got $170,000. So still not a bad weekend to go there and make $170,000, Doug.
Yeah, pretty good weekend. It's funny, and Tiger didn't play. He had surgery whenever it was, a month ago or something. We hope he gets to play next week. And I think he will in the father-son with his son Charlie, because he'll be able to ride in a cart, and Charlie will hit most of the drives off the tee. But, yeah, it was just 20 guys, and some of the guys didn't play. Rory never plays. Colin Morikawa was not there. Xander Schauffele had a family commitment. Max Homa, some of these guys played in South Africa. Gary Player had his big tournament in South Africa. So, it was a nice field, but Scotty Scheffler was clearly the cream of the crop. And it didn't take him much, just 4 solid rounds and then a spectacular day on Sunday to win a cool $1 million. Barry, isn't that amazing? You go and 20 guys are out there just playing in the Bahamas, this fabulous course. The weather was fantastic. And, oh, by the way, here you go. Here's $1 million.
It's $1 million for your trouble.
Yeah, here's $1 million. Yeah. Pretty good stuff. But and again, for our listeners, and we talk golf, we love golf. This guy, analytically, when you look at the statistics, he is so far ahead of number 2, which is Rory McIlroy. It is crazy how much better he is than everybody else, and we just need to keep emphasizing that. Last year now, he won 7 times, and he won the gold medal, and of those 7 wins, he won the Masters, won the Players' Championship, won the Tour Championship. So pretty phenomenal year. And we should also say Justin Thomas, hasn't won now in 2.5 years. He's getting better. And he had a good year last year, didn't win. This was his first tournament as a father. He and his wife celebrated the birth of their first little baby 3 weeks ago. So he's entering a different stage of his life. But I do believe that Justin, in this coming year, I think he's going to break back into the winner's circle, because everything points statistically, he's still hitting it great. around the greens, he's right up there with Scotty Scheffler as far as getting up and down from off the green. Just got to improve that putting a little bit, and then Justin Thomas will be back to where he was a few years ago.
What's next for the PGA Tour, Doug?
Well, it's kind of fun, guys. Next week, not this week, but next week after next, I guess, is the PNC Father-Son, which is always kind of fun. Tiger hasn't announced yet, but we hope he plays with Charlie. And then all the dads and their sons. That's always kind of a fun deal. And then the week before Christmas is the made-for-TV deal, Live versus the PGA Tour in Vegas. And I'm looking forward to it. It's Brooks Koepka and Bryson DeChambeau going against Scotty Scheffler and Rory McIlroy in 9 holes one day, 9 holes the next day. It'll be on Turner. And, those things have gotten a little old and stale here over the last few years, but I just think this will be fun to watch because I don't think Scotty and Rory want to lose to Brooks and Bryson and vice versa. So I think instead of just going out there and kind of going through the motions, I think these guys will really be playing hard. So that'll be fun. And then Barry and Coach, after that, we take a couple of weeks off and we'll go to Hawaii where the 2025 season will start up again. Century Tournament of Champions in Maui, followed by the Sony Open in Hawaii, which will be the first full field event in the PGA Tour.
What a life. Start the season off in Hawaii. Tough gig.
Yes, it is. Somebody's got to do it, Barry. Somebody's got to slave over that hot microphone.
All right, I need you and Dad to answer a question from me. I'm not smart like you two. And you said the word analytics when you were talking about Justin or somebody, whatever. It is Penn State scores a touchdown. It is 38-30. They go for 2. Why? And they said, well, analytics. Analytics, my butt. That is stupid. They missed it. You cut the game to 7. Why? NFL teams are doing that all the time. Well, they're stupid. Why in the world, Doug, are you going for 2 at 38-30?
Well, it's interesting. These coaches, and James Franklin is, I guess, even though he's been around forever, he's not necessarily an old school coach. And so they do go by this analytics, this book, the computer, which spits out when you should go for 2, even if it's in the first quarter or second quarter or whatever. And that was the crazy. Barry, I was watching the game too, and I was like, what the heck? They're going to have to not only score a touchdown, but they're going to have to get a 2-point conversion.
Yes.
To tie this thing. When in essence, all they had to do was kick the extra point earlier, and a touchdown would have tied it. So we see it all the time. I mean, it's not just Penn State, but it happens all the time. And whenever they do it, I'm adding up in my head. I'm like, whoa, why? Well, what's the thought process? But again, it goes to the computer, and I don't know. The computer, though, is not real. I mean, it spits out. The computer adds up every game, every conference all across America, and they come out with these charts. But you got to go game by game, circumstance by circumstance. And
I don't ever see a reason to go at 38. You kick it 38-31. I don't understand.
It made no sense whatsoever. And I mean, it didn't cost them because I don't think Oregon was ever in danger of losing that game. At least that's what I saw. It was like they were just kind of Penn State was always at arm's length and never could quite get over.
I could have lost that.
That was his blue plate, and
I won it.
he won it. But I mean,
3.5.
You got to be happy when they went for 2 and didn't get. Why would you? I just don't. That blows my mind.
And it happens all the time. These coaches who get paid tons of money and are surrounded by staffs, high-paid assistants, and all these guys are experienced. They've been coaching forever, and yet they go by just some.
They should fire him. They should fire him over that decision.
They open up the laptop. What does the computer say? I'll go for it now, Coach. Okay, here we go. So and really 2-point conversions. Those are hard to get against good teams. It's hard to get a 2-point conversion against good teams. And very rarely do they get it in college or pro football.
Let me ask both of y'all this: if y'all were SMU, would you have gone for 2 to beat Clemson?
Barry, it's funny you say that. I was watching that game. I I think you got to kick the extra point and figure, hey, we got the momentum. We're going to win in overtime.
Yeah.
But that should have. The thing is, they're already in the playoffs at that point. The whole narrative had changed, which I thought was amazing. Right, early in the game, Sean McDonough and Greg McElroy go on camera when it was, Clemson was comfortably ahead, and Sean McDonough was like, "Oh my goodness, if SMU doesn't do something, they're out." I mean, they don't want to get embarrassed in this game. And then all of a sudden, in the fourth quarter, when they start making a comeback, their whole narrative changes. It's like, whoa, they worked their way back in the playoffs. And it was kind of like, what? Just because of a fourth quarter comeback? But in essence, that's what happened. The fourth quarter comeback rallied not only SMU, but it rallied the whole narrative for everybody, the committee who was watching, et cetera. And the committee had no other choice. They could not have the firestorm that would have come down on them if they had chosen Alabama would have been just unbearable for those people. So they went the easy route, and that's ultimately what they did.
Well, the Alabama people are mad at Dabo for letting them come back.
And then Dabo, after the game, said there's no way you keep this team out of the playoffs. So he gave SMU another shot, and so did Greg McElroy. So, they just said what they truly felt. But Alabama people don't like that, Doug. They want you to be pro-Alabama in everything that you do.
Well, again, you could say Greg was in a tough spot, but I think, again, he did what he felt he had to do to keep things calm in his life.
Yeah.
I mean, on the social media firewall that would have come down on him would have been amazing. And he's got a radio show in Birmingham, et cetera. So he was just kind of playing. He was very political. He's like, hey, whatever. And of course, Dabo trying to get one more team in the ACC, and he did what he felt he had to do. But all those things, again, the committee, I think, was ready to put Alabama in, and at halftime, Alabama was in. At the end of the third quarter, okay, maybe somebody was like, let's just see how it plays out. And then all of a sudden, this fourth quarter comeback, and Alabama was out.
Mm-hmm.
And then the post-game shows, post-game Saturday, my goodness. I mean, there wasn't one single person who didn't think SMU should be in. And then Sunday morning, it was hours and hours of SMU is in, and then ultimately that led to that announcement. So, bottom line, Alabama, and again, guys, I've been on your show. I always felt that the SEC would get 4 in, just like the Big Ten, and I think that was the plan until this avalanche of support for SMU following their fourth quarter comeback. They end up losing that game by 14 points or more. It's Alabama's in today.
Yeah.
There was a little backlash in it over what's happened in the past. There's some backlash in it.
Yeah, I mean it'll be interesting. I did find it interesting that Oregon, up until I came on with you guys, I was checking. Texas and Georgia were the favorites to win the national championship, and Oregon was third. But now, since then, I guess people have changed a little bit. Oregon is plus 350, along with Texas. Georgia's plus 360. I don't know what the deal is with their quarterback yet. We find out later today. Ohio State plus 525, and SMU, by the way, of the 12 teams, they're plus 4,000. They're the longest odds to win the national title.
Doug, you ain't gonna find out. Kirby's not gonna tell you anything. You're not gonna find out today.
They have extra time too. I mean,
Kirby is not. You're gonna not hear anything about how serious or how non-serious it is, whatever that word is. He's not gonna tell you anything, which he shouldn't. Why would he give them a heads up? Where he's at?
I mean, they very well may not know. I mean, maybe it's a strained ligament, maybe it's whatever, and maybe 2 weeks will heal it. Maybe it's a game time decision.
Yeah,
we don't know. So, but I don't know. I find it interesting, and all the teams on the road, guys, in those first games, pretty substantial odds. I mean, Indiana's getting 7.5 at Notre Dame. SMU's getting 8.5 at Penn State. Clemson's getting 11 at Texas. And Texas, again, they're kind of a head-scratching team to me. They're highly ranked, and yet, I'm trying to figure out why everybody thinks they're so good. And Tennessee's getting 7.5 at Ohio State. So the road teams in those opening round games are getting a substantial number. that's something to look at as we get closer to the games.
Yeah. All right, Chase, let's get the little thing out. We'll see how Doug's picks went. Doug got greedy. He was 3-0, 3-0. He was 6-0. So then he wanted to go 4 games. All right.
Those gamblers are.
Yeah, they get greedy. And so let's look at how he did. I'm not saying he did bad. Let's just say he did. Arizona State versus Iowa State.
I almost picked
Doug said take Arizona State -2.5. He could not have been more right. Arizona State blew the doors off of Iowa State. What a story there. Pick last and win it. So good deal for Dillingham there. Seems like a good guy. SMU versus Clemson. Doug said take SMU -2.5. That would be a loss.
Yeah.
All right. Georgia versus Texas. Georgia was getting points in Atlanta. Who's ever heard of that?
Gotta love that.
He said take Georgia plus the 2.5, and he is a winner there. So ring that one up. And then Penn State, he went against Dad on the Blue Plate Special. He said take Penn State. Why you would ever take Penn State in a big game, I don't know. Penn State plus 3.5. Oregon covered that easily. Not easily, but they covered it. So that will be a loss. Yeah.
I just find out how he's going. I go opposite.
Yeah. So Doug, not bad, man. Your regular season record 26-18-2. It's pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I forget what it was last year this time, guys, but I don't think it was quite
I don't blame
that
you. I would too.
I think it wasn't real. It wasn't close at all. Doug, you were. A monkey could have picked better last year, but so what are we doing now? There's nothing to pick this week, right? So you're going to just study and be back ready to roll next week.
Yeah, I mean, I gave you the odds, and I'm intrigued by the fact that for example, Clemson's getting 11. That seems like a lot in a game like that. And Tennessee's getting 7.5 at Columbus. I just wonder about Ohio State. They'll have been off, just like Tennessee, basically for 3 weeks. So it really is like a bowl game. So I don't know. I'm intrigued by those games, guys, and I'll have those picks next week. I mean, really, the only game this week.
Texas is 11 is a lot.
11, I think so.
I don't.
SMU's getting 8.5 at Penn State. I don't know. SMU looked aside. And again, we got excited about the rally in the fourth quarter, but you have to realize, they were against a Clemson team that had gotten beat, 3 times during the regular season, and they got hammered by Louisville in that game. If you remember, Georgia absolutely destroyed them in that first game. That was one of my losses this season, by the way. And then you get beat by South Carolina at home. So, I just wonder. I know SMU rallied. They're in the playoffs. They're last among the 12 as far as odds to win it all, which I think is understandable. That's the one game. SMU at Penn State. I don't know. A lot of intriguing matchups, guys. Yeah, give me a week to figure this out because I want to go 4-0.
All right. Well, I was impressed with Rhett Lashley, his demeanor on the sideline, and thought he did a good job. That quarterback for SMU, he's some player. Whew, he's good.
Yeah, yeah, he really is. And he was fun. And he has kind of an awkward throwing motion. But man alive, he is quick. Yeah, and you mentioned Kenny Dillingham, the Arizona State guy. 34 years old. And as he said, he goes, listen, people have always said my whole life I look young, too young, right? And if you look at his resume, like 8 years ago, guys, he was the offensive coordinator at the high school out there in Arizona. And he was an offensive coordinator 1 year at Auburn under Gus Malzahn 4 years ago. And now he's the head coach of this program that has this unbelievable turnaround. I mean, that's of all the stories in college football, that's got to be the best one, I think, Arizona State.
Yeah.
Last.
Yeah.
I mean, it's remarkable what they did.
Yeah, no doubt. So it's going to have a lot of athletic directors looking at their coach saying, why can't you do that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, tell about MD Wellness and Aesthetics before we let you go.
Yeah, Barry, I appreciate it. Again, Susan Brignett is the owner. Don Mancuso is the MD. It's a free consultation. And go to the web, mdwellnessandaesthetics.com. for all that they have to offer, especially as we near Christmas. I always say it's a great opportunity to go in and get a gift certificate for the person in your life, whether it's the man in your life or the woman in your life, whatever. And then you can come after the holidays and sit down with Susan and kind of talk it over. But then again, they're doing the procedures today and Friday right up until Christmas. Give her a call. She will answer today, 205-582-9216. Great lady, an incredible staff. They're really, really friendly, and they know what they're doing. MDWellness&Aesthetics.com.
Thank you, Doug. Have a great week.
Doug. Yeah, talk to you next week, guys. Bye.
All right. Go study. All right, Dad, let's talk about Bryant Bank before we get to break.
Bryant Bank, locations in Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, throughout the state of Alabama, but outstanding people. Go in Bryant Bank and visit with the head banker and his people that work with him, and I think that you'll find they do everything they possibly can to make it a satisfied journey for you. Personal account, business account, 2 different accounts. Money going to be looked after. Be sure that nobody goes into your bank account and messes with it. Being able to bank online around the clock, very, very good deal there. Interested in the high schools around them and the community, and I think Bryant Bank is the place to go. I trade with them here in Birmingham on Highway 280, so go by, visit with them, and tell me you heard on Inside the Locker Room.
All right, we'll open the phone lines 205-342-9904. Listen to Tide 100.9, 1230 AM. WTBC is the home of Alabama sports.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. Overturned vehicle has been there for a while now, reportedly on Highway 82 westbound at Shelley Hughes Road. And we do have that on the left shoulder, so all the main lanes are still open, and this will cause some onlooker delays. Otherwise, traffic is moving quite nicely across the rest of the freeway. We got a light Monday on our hands.
Focus 50 Plus is holding a donation drive for items to help seniors enjoy the holiday season. Log on to focus50plus.org.
Road tripping, business travel, or bringing your car in for repairs. All great reasons to rent a Toyota at Tuscaloosa Toyota. You can rent the latest Toyota models for a day, a week, or a weekend. Every Toyota rental car comes with 24 hours roadside assistance.
Important to let this moment pass us by.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Wet weather headlines are forecast today and tonight. Cloudy with occasional rain. The high today 66, the low tonight 50. Tomorrow cloudy, rain likely, maybe a thunderstorm in spots. The high tomorrow afternoon in the mid to upper 60s at 67. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 63 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Want to know what's going on with the Crimson Tide? Download the Tide 100.9 app today.
Welcome back to Inside the Locker Room. I get right to the Yellowwood hotline. Get Digger in. Good morning, Digger.
Maddening.
Digger?
Absolutely maddening.
What's maddening?
Think about this.
What's maddening?
Well, I mean, you're talking about coaches going for 2 and all that
Yeah,
nonsense.
that is maddening. That's stupid.
Okay. Try this, Barry. You know the punter's hurt. You send out a walk-on who's never punted in SEC play, and he runs a fake, and you didn't stop it. That was probably the biggest brain fart of the year.
Yeah.
Come on. You know
Who was
he's
there
not
that did that?
kicking that ball.
Who did that, Barry?
Who are you talking about, Digger?
Georgia.
Yeah.
Georgia did that. In the fourth quarter, we had them stop. And again, by the way, you got to admit, this was a competitive game. Regardless of the 11 penalties, 15 plays for loss, 6 drop passes, 2 interceptions.
Yeah.
We should have been up a lot more than 6-3 in the first half.
Sure.
Okay. I've come away with this by this whole thing. Congratulations, Georgia. You won. Okay. It is what it is. But guess what? Running quarterback beat Georgia. You know that, don't you?
Yeah.
I think a running quarterback can beat Georgia, and that's why I'm thinking the SEC is not going to be a natty this year. I'm being dead serious about that. Both of these teams can be beat if you play them right.
I think that two I think the two announcers lean towards Georgia too.
Well, I mean, they were, and I'm being honest, they did bring up a few things back in the second half. It was like, they finally got a holding call on Georgia.
Yeah.
Come on.
So,
the game was in hand already. But,
Digger, you guys are blessed this year. Not only did you get the weakest SEC schedule ever given to a team.
Here it comes.
Now the bracket falls in your way. The best seed is a 5 seed. You're playing Clemson. And then you're going to beat them, and then you get Arizona State. So what a great! And you're sitting there, Tennessee and Ohio State. Oregon's got to play them. So you got a break there too, didn't you? This is the break of all breaks.
It is. But I'm telling you, it's not going to make any difference if you don't have a running game, and Georgia knew that. We were one-dimensional that whole game, and we still managed to outgame them in yards.
Why didn't you play Arch more? You started him in overtime.
Dare I say it? They should have. They need to implement. I'm being serious.
Yeah.
They need a running quarterback to beat Georgia, and Arch was the perfect candidate for it. Oh, my God. Now you got me spitting mad.
Yeah.
The only thing that looks stupider now is Tom, who honestly thought Alabama was in just on brand alone.
No, Alabama.
Cow, that hurt.
Alabama was not in. You can talk strength of schedule.
Hurt.
Greg Burnham can talk whatever they want. You got to win at Oklahoma, or you win at one of those two places you're in. So,
final thing. It's going to continue until you play 9 conference games. Come on.
They ain't doing that now. They're talking about watering down the schedule and not making it tougher. So
you need to play 9. I guarantee you that was brought up in the committee last night. Well, I mean, you can always do that if you play 8 conference games. You got to start the round robin play in your conference and go from there.
There you go.
Go 9 conference games. I'm telling you, that's the way to do it, and you won't be getting this again.
There you go.
Alabama did if they played a 9th conference game. I promise you that.
I don't know about that.
So,
thank you, Digger.
Later.
They were in if SMU didn't make that comeback, but they did. So, all right, we'll take this last break and then wrap up the show. You listen to Tide 100.9. It's your home of Alabama sports.
Coming up on The Game with Ryan Fowler.
Coming up on the Monday edition of The Game, starting at 2 p.m., we're either going to be celebrating or we're going to be crying. We'll talk about Alabama's playoff chances. At that point, will be known. We'll recap it with Drew DeArmond. We'll talk to Martin Houston. We'll talk to Barrett Salee right here on The Game with Ryan Fowler, starting at 2 p.m. on Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC, your home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
The longest-running sports program in Tuscaloosa. The Game with Ryan Fowler. Weekdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
Tuscaloosa traffic now from the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center. Overturned vehicle has been there for a while now, reportedly on Highway 82 westbound at Shelley Hughes Road. And we do have that on the left shoulder, so all the main lanes are still open, and this will cause some onlooker delays. Otherwise, traffic is moving quite nicely across the rest of the freeway. We got a light Monday on our hands.
Every game all season right here on your home for Alabama basketball. The Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Inside the Locker Room with Wimp and Barry on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back to Inside Locker Room. The transfer portal is officially open, Chase. So, the guys need to announce that they're coming back, or just if you're coming back, there's no reason to say anything. I hope if you're coming back, they don't start putting out graphics like, I'm going to run it back and all that crap. Just come back. Go lift weights and get to practice and come back. We'll see. There'll there'll be a few surprises, I think, and maybe they'll have Kendrick Laws in there. Do those guys are they done? Are they going to practice for the bowl games? Chase is saying no, so I guess we'll see where these guys end up. But obviously, when you see Arizona State go from pick last to first, the portal can help some of these teams. So you never know what will happen. Colorado 9 wins, and they basically have all portal guys. So but Clemson has none, and they're in the playoff. So you got to figure out what's best for your team and your university, and dig in and go for it. All right, that's it for today's show. The Gary Harris Show is next, so keep it locked in. We'll be back tomorrow bright and early. We'll talk with Kevin Swarbinski, everybody's favorite, tomorrow at 7:30. Listen, Tide 100.9 and 12:30 a.m. WTBC. It's the home of Alabama sports. Have a great day, everybody.